Welcome back to r/MaliciousCompliance. Imagine getting cancer, then telling your boss, but instead of supporting you, he fires you on the spot, calling you sick and saying he won't waste money on someone who might die. This boss had no idea that I had a secret weapon. Let's dive right into the story. And the title Malicious Compliance XXL Reddit story is titled, "Here is why you don't fire the person that created your best-selling product." Posted on r/MaliciousCompliance. So, some context first. I live in a former Soviet country. I won't say which one because people around here gossip a lot and I still work in the industry. Let's just say we have a lot of old factories, a lot of small manufacturers trying to modernize, and a government that's always somewhere between "we support entrepreneurs" and "you need this stamp, another stamp, and then a letter from a retired colonel." I'm a product designer. I design things that you can hold, not just computer software. For a good chunk of my career, I worked at a manufacturing company that made commercial kitchen equipment. Not the flashy stuff, more like the back-of-house gear that nobody even thinks about until it breaks. Prep tables, Bain Marys, rack trolleys and countertop units. I specialized in thermal control and materials because that's the niche that separates cheap junk from professional gear. Food safety is serious business, and if a fridge cannot hold temperatures, it ruins more than just a random lunch. Our bestseller, the product that basically kept the lights on, was a compact, energy-efficient blast chiller. For anyone who does not speak kitchen, it's like a small cold chamber that rapidly drops food temperatures through the danger zone to keep things safe. We had a new wave of laws inspired by some new standards. A lot of restaurants and catering companies needed smaller, smarter units because they did not have space or power for the big industrial monsters. That product was my baby. I spent a long time on it. I came up with a unique air channel geometry that did not choke the fan and a condenser layout that performed like a bigger unit without drawing a bigger load. The insulation was layered with a thin phase change panel near the inner shell. It was not rocket science, but it was thoughtful and it worked. The big kicker was the removable service module. You could slide out the fan and control section for cleaning and maintenance without evacuating refrigerant. This was gold for kitchen owners who hate downtime. It sounds boring on paper, but it was the difference between a unit that sits at 40 degrees and one that creeps to 8 degrees and gets you fined by inspectors. Before you ask how I owned the rights to a product I made at work, well, this is where the story starts to drift into a very local kind of legal chaos. After the fall of the old system, the Soviet one I guess, a lot of companies formed under weird hybrid laws. When I joined, the owner had this fast and loose approach to employment. He liked keeping core staff independent so he could dodge payroll taxes and social contributions. He paid my salary as a contractor with a long-term agreement and a separate IP licensing contract that I insisted on because I'd been burned before. That contract was signed without legal review on his side because he thought he was smarter than everyone. It said all novel designs submitted by contractor remain contractor's intellectual property unless explicitly assigned in a separate instrument. The company is granted a non-exclusive license to produce based on such designs for the duration of this agreement, revocable upon termination for cause or at contractor's discretion upon material breach. In short, I kept ownership unless we signed a separate transfer. We never signed one though, and he had a license to make my stuff as long as we were in good standing. If there was a breach or termination for cause, I could pull the license. I did not push this when I joined though, because I was grateful for the job and he seemed fair. Also, back then, my designs were not the center of the business. They became that over time. We were doing well, my blast chiller was selling like crazy domestically, and we even had a distributor in a neighboring country picking them up for bakeries and even small hotels. My unit became the thing they bragged about and the owner loved the attention. He would stand by the unit and call it our European model. Even though the only European part was a fan motor, we imported and I begged him not to switch to a cheaper one. Now to the part where everything spins sideways. I got diagnosed with cancer. I'm not gonna turn this into a medical sob story or something, don't worry. It was caught early on, it was treatable, and doctors gave me a plan and a realistic timeline. I could work through some parts of treatment, take a leave for the rough parts, and then come back. It was one of those gut punch moments where you sit in your kitchen staring at the wall and suddenly the refrigerator hum sounds too loud. I told my spouse first, then my parents and then the owner because I wanted to be honest and set expectations. I put the doctor's note on the owner's desk and explained that I would need a few blocks of leave and some flexible days. I'd already sketched out how to keep production humming, the drawings were done, the BOMs were organized. The drafting tech could finalize minor changes, our QC guy knew the test procedure because I wrote it. It was like leaving a neat house. The owner was weirdly quiet, he's usually loud and full of jokes, he just stared at the paper and then at me. He asked some questions that made it clear he didn't understand what cancer is or how treatment works. That would be fine if he had listened, but he didn't. He twisted it into one of his macho speeches about not bringing weakness into the factory. He said that he could not invest in someone who might die next month. It was like he was evaluating a broken forklift. I'm not gonna repeat everything, but he used the word sick in a way that was not about illness. He made it sound like a defect or moral failure. He said he was not gonna waste company money on me. He told me to leave immediately and don't look back because he would never spend one more coin on a sick individual. He said a few other choice things that made the QC guy in the doorway freeze. It was not a conversation, it was a dismissal in the ugliest way. I took a beat. I did not cry in front of him. I've seen a lot of people in our city swallow things they shouldn't have to swallow. I was not gonna give him a show. I said understood, handed back my badge, which as a contractor didn't mean anything anyway, and walked out. He shouted down the hall for me to take everything that's mine and get out. This was the key line. He told me to leave immediately and not look back. He fired me in the middle of the day. He did it in front of two people. He made it personal and he made it clear he did not want to spend money on me. He did not offer severance or anything. He didn't talk about a handover. He didn't ask for keys to the tooling room because he forgot that contractors had separate access cards that the floor manager handled. He did not even ask about IP or licenses because he never believed that piece of paper mattered. He forgot the difference between me and an employee. He told me to leave with everything that's mine. So I did. It was the designs in the folder on my hard drive and the license they used to make our bestseller. It was also a second design in progress, a smaller unit with a novel latch. I didn't take a single screw or drawing. I didn't touch a tool. I didn't log into their server either. I left my workstation exactly as it was. The malicious part was invisible, but I called my lawyer. I'm not rich, but my country has some scrappy lawyers who live for "you think you're smart" fights with small-time tyrants. Mine had seen my contract a long time ago and helped me write it because a cousin of mine recommended him. He loves contracts. He's allergic to drama, unless it's in a courtroom. I sent him an email with what happened and he called me the same day. He said the keywords material breach and termination for cause. Then he asked for a copy of the contract and any attachments. He was not surprised I had them organized in a labeled folder because, well, I am that kind of person. We filed a formal notice of termination of the license, citing material breach of contract. The breach was termination without cause under the pretense of discrimination on the basis of health condition, which, while our country is not perfect on discrimination laws, it crosses certain lines, especially when you're operating under still practicing EU-inspired labor rules and your own contract forbids it. The contract explicitly said their right to manufacture based on my designs was under a non-exclusive license revocable upon material breach. It didn't require me to give them a cure period or anything. It did require me to notify them in writing and provide the basis, and we did that. We used his words against him. We also demanded that they destroy or stop using my design documents and molds related to the removable module because that module was separately registered as an industrial design in my name. Well, that registration was not pretty. It looked like a photocopy, but it existed and had a number. The owner did not reply. I think he thought I was bluffing. He sent me a message through one of the line managers asking me to return a USB stick. The USB was the company's. It was on my desk. I had left it there, but he did not ask about the license. He did not ask for a meeting, he doubled down and told the shop floor that I abandoned my post and could not handle the pressure. The QC guy told me later the exact words he used, and I saved that because it came in handy. Well, we followed up with a cease and desist, stop manufacturing and selling units that embody my registered design features and my licensed drawings. We listed the model numbers and the features. We were not vague, and then we filed for a preliminary injunction in court to bar them from selling the product until the dispute was resolved. My lawyer thought it was a coin toss or courts are slow, but we had a couple of things going for us here. The contract was clear, the owner had publicly described my termination in a way that made it sound discriminatory, and I had a registered industrial design for the removable service module. That alone is usually enough to get a judge's attention because it's a specific protected element, not just vibes. And after we filed the case, I started chemotherapy. I did the annoying, painful things, I slept, I stared at the ceiling again, but this time I had a goal. I don't want to over-dramatize the illness part, but it sucked. Though I had good doctors, I had my spouse, and I only had a couple of friends who took turns bringing over soup and bad jokes. And I had this simmering anger that I used like a battery. I think a lot of people who go through something big know what I mean when I say the small things become clear. I knew one thing, I was not gonna let this man profit from the one thing I built while calling me a deadweight. He finally responded, but not to us. He kept making units. He sent a snotty letter later that said the design was company property by custom and practice. That phrase makes lawyers salivate. Custom and practice can influence unwritten parts of employment, but it does not override a written contract that explicitly says the opposite. He also claimed the removable module concept was obvious, which is funny because he used to brag it was our secret weapon. While all this churned, I got a message from the distributor in the neighboring country. He heard a rumor that I had left and wanted to know if the new small unit was still on schedule. I told him I was no longer with the company, and he asked why. I told him I couldn't comment on specifics due to legal stuff, and he asked if I would consider collaborating with their local manufacturer. I said, let's talk after I was done with treatment. He said he would wait for me, and back home, my lawyer pushed for a court date. The owner suddenly became very interested in meeting. He called my lawyer with an offer that was insulting. He wanted me to confirm the license was still in place with business as usual, and in exchange he would consider rehiring me after I recovered if I signed a paper saying I left voluntarily. He is the type who thinks you can fix everything with a wink and cash in a plastic bag. My lawyer said no. I said no. The judge, when we finally got a hearing for the injunction, did something that I still think about with gratitude. She read the contract, asked my lawyer one or two questions about the registration of the module design, looked at the owner, and asked him if he had a separate assignment of rights signed by me. But he didn't. She granted a temporary injunction that prohibited the company from selling units that used the removable service module design and any internal layout that mapped to my drawing set until the full case was heard. She said if they wanted to sell a different design, fine, but it could not be mine or a small tweak. You could almost hear the sound of a cash register slamming shut across town. Without that unit, the company did not have much to sell anymore. They had other lines, but the blast chiller was the star. He tried to argue the injunction was too broad, but it wasn't. It named specific things and he would have to redesign the product, and he couldn't. He did not have a design engineer who knew the balance of airflow, compressor spec and service access that made it work. He had fired me in a tantrum. He had alienated the QC guy enough that the guy stayed for a paycheck, but he was not gonna save the owner from his own mess. Production slowed to a crawl. The owner sent the sales team to push other stuff, but it didn't move. He tried to belly crawl back. This is where the malicious compliance really slides into place. When he told me not to look back, I took it literally. I didn't step foot into that place again. The only communication was through my lawyer. He sent messages through mutual acquaintances saying he was ready to be reasonable. The messages always had the same vibe though, you will be back when you are desperate. He did not understand how much even a small victory in court can change the power dynamic. I had free time between treatments, so I started consulting for a competitor. I know it sounds really malicious, but it was almost boring. I took the train to a small workshop. The competitor wasn't glamorous. They were a family-run firm that made stainless tables and dish racks and dreamed about doing more. The manager was predictable, decent, and had a daughter who ran the shop with the kind of competence that does not need any screaming. They wanted to enter the blast fast chiller market, but did not have the know-how. I made it clear that I could not bring over anything that belonged to the old company, but the removable service module design belonged to me. The airflow channels were mine too, since the company's license was now revoked. I was careful, I did not lift a single drawing. I rebuilt in a fresh environment, changing everything that was not critical and formalizing the design in new ways. The phase change panel concept was not registrable in our system and was not a trade secret. It was mine as a general idea. We filed new drawings with updated dimensions and a different chassis form. We registered the look of the module latch under a new industrial design because I'd improved it. This time, I put the competitor's name on the registration with my name as author. We had a clean story. Collaboration with clear ownership. I learned my lesson about standing alone. We brought a prototype to the lab I used to test it. The tech who ran it raised an eyebrow seeing me with a different team, but he didn't care as long as paperwork was in order. We ran it through and it hit the numbers. It was not magic. And yes, it worked because the details matched the real-world constraints. Bad power, dirty kitchens, overworked staff. When we presented the new unit to the distributor from the neighboring country, he practically hugged the box. He signed a small order to test the market, and then he tripled it. The first order shipped right before my final round of treatment. I will never forget sitting in my kitchen again, this time drinking soup and getting a text from the competitor's manager, a photo of a pallet wrapped and labeled with our new model code. Back at my old company, the owner did what owners like him always do under pressure. He tried to cheat. He modified the removable module just enough to claim it was not the same anymore. He changed the latch shape, moved a couple of screw bosses, but left the guts identical because he didn't understand the underlying principle. He thought design is about how things look, but design is about how things work. So we filed a motion to enforce the injunction. The judge was unimpressed with his new module. The court's independent expert pulled both assemblies apart and wrote a dry report that concluded his version of implements the same functional structure with only superficial changes. The judge extended the ban and warned of fines. He tried another tactic though, a smear campaign. He told vendors that I was unstable and vindictive and that I was trying to destroy jobs. He didn't realize that vendors talk to each other and that half his suppliers had family members who had dealt with cancer. It backfired. One of the sheet metal suppliers called me and offered laser time at a discount if I needed it. I passed it to my new team. The market does not always punish bad behavior though. But sometimes in a small city it does, especially when someone says the quiet part out loud about firing a person because they might die. On the legal side, my main lawsuit was not just about the injunction. We sued for breach of contract, wrongful termination under the terms of our agreement, and for damages based on illegal use of my design after the license was revoked. My lawyer kept it boring and methodical. We had the contract, the injunction, the evidence of continued sales they tried to sneak to a couple of clients, which we caught because every unit had a serial number, and the clients were willing to testify because they were angry. The owner's lawyer tried to paint me as an ingrate who was made by the company. My lawyer put up a slide in court with the original contract date, the lack of assignment, and a timeline of me coming in as a contractor with my own IP terms. The owner sank even lower in his chair every time my lawyer said, "Non-exclusive license." The judge was not in a hurry, but the direction was clear. During all of this, I worked my way back from treatment. Fatigue is real, but it fades slowly. I eased back into the new role with the competitor. I did not want to be management, I just wanted to make the product. They respected that and they let me set up a little test bay in a corner with a cheap desk and a coffee mug that said something corny about staying cool. The shop floor had a vibe I had not felt in a long time. People who wanted to be there. There weren't bonuses or spa days, just respect and invoices getting paid on time. I came in one day and there was a little note on my desk with a kind message. Not a big thing, just a "glad you're with us." I kept the note. Orders grew. The distributor in the neighboring country told a friend in another city. We didn't explode overnight, but we had a nice, steady climb. We were modestly priced, reliable, and actually serviceable. I wrote a manual that didn't read like it was translated by a goat. We trained service techs, we did the boring things well, and the competitors noticed. The old company noticed too. He filed a counterclaim at one point saying that I had stolen trade secrets. This was risky for him because discovery meant showing his internal documents, and he did not have any meaningful ones. He had scrap and emails where he told staff to just copy the old plan and change the dates. His trade secret claims were about features that were not secret and were not even his. The court did not buy it. The judge dismissed the counterclaim with a note that was polite, but in our legal language might as well have said, "Don't waste my time." Meanwhile, the sales ban on their main product starved them. They tried to push into a different segment with a cheap rebranded unit from a factory in another country. It broke in a month. Their last decent sales guy quit too, and the floor manager left and took 2 techs with him. Suppliers tightened terms, the banks started calling. As the court case dragged, a temporary solution came up. They tried to settle with me. The owner, through a new lawyer, offered to pay a small sum and buy my IP. He wanted a number that would let him pretend that he won at the pub. It was not serious, it was just an insult. I told my lawyer my settlement number. It was not insane, it just reflected the revenue flow the design had created and what I had lost. It also reflected the cost of principal. My lawyer sent it and there was a long silence. Then a meeting. The owner arrived with his new lawyer in a face like he had not slept. He looked smaller. He did the thing bullies do when they meet a wall. He tried to charm. He told me I looked good. He said, "No hard feelings." He said the market was tough and he had made some hard choices. He tried to pretend the firing was a misunderstanding or a miscommunication. In the heat of the moment, he said he had never meant to hurt me. I remembered the exact words he had said. "Don't look back. I would never waste money on a sick individual." I did not repeat them. I did not give him a chance to deny them. I just said I was here to settle numbers. He balked at my number and he called it extortion. My lawyer said the word injunction louder than necessary. We left without a deal, and a few weeks later the court issued a decision on the main case. We won. It was not blazing in neon, but it was solid. The court affirmed that the contract's IP clause was enforceable, and it ordered the company to pay damages for the unauthorized production after the license was terminated. It made the injunction permanent for those specific designs, and it dismissed the counterclaim. It awarded legal costs as well. It did not address the discrimination component directly because our claims were based on contract, not labor law, and I was not an employee. But the language made it clear the court did not like what had happened. He appealed, of course he did. He did not have the cash for a bond, so the judgment sat there like a brick on his chest. The press did not cover it because nobody cares about our kind of manufacturing unless a politician can pose in front of it, but the city is small and people heard about it. Around the same time, my new company flew me to a small fair in the capital to show our unit. It was almost ridiculous how easy the contrast was. Cheerful booth, product that actually cooled, and no one getting shouted at. I saw one of my old co-workers wander by with a box of flyers for some other job he had picked up. He gave me a nod that said, "Good." That nod meant more to me than any court paper. The end came for the old company with a third. They were barred from selling the only product that made them recognizable. Their attempt at cheap imports flopped and their banker did not extend them further. I was told by a former colleague that one morning, workers showed up and there were 2 guys from the bailiff's office, a padlock and a notice. That's a sight you don't forget. It makes a specific kind of empty sound when the metal door shuts for the last time. The owner sent me one last message through a mutual acquaintance asking if I felt proud for destroying a local business. That's the kind of sentiment people use when they want you to wear guilt for their choice. I did not feel proud. I felt tired and I felt a quiet, hard kind of satisfaction that the world didn't bend to him this time, and I also felt bad for the workers who had to scramble. But I knew most of them had already found other gigs in the weeks before the end, because skilled metal workers and refrigeration techs don't sit idle for long. They will be okay. They are always okay because they are the ones who actually do the work. There was one more wave. The appeal court upheld the core of the judgment. The company's assets were liquidated and the damages became part of a line item in bankruptcy. I was not gonna see most of the money, and I knew that. It was not really about a big payout, it was about shutting the door he had left open, the one where he thought he could keep selling my work while calling me a liability. That door slammed shut. He tried to open it with appeals. It stayed shut. On a better note, my health is good now. I'm in follow-up mode. I don't run marathons, but I walk every day. My spouse and I celebrated small milestones with dumplings from a stall that always closes early, and the old jokes came back. Life returned to regular boring in the most beautiful way, and the product? Well, the new unit is a quite little success. We did not explode into headlines or anything, we just deliver boxes that do what they say on the label. We got a small government grant for energy-efficient equipment because a friend of a friend at an agency said our numbers were realistic. We hired 2 more people, the shop upgraded the laser cutter, and the manager still makes coffee too strong. And the daughter still runs the floor and calls me out when I get too precious about tolerances. We are fine. And the next one is an interesting malicious compliance story that is titled "Rude Client Wasted Almost 1 hour to hear the same info I told her already from different employees." Posted on r/maliciouscompliance by user iWantShortNick. And by the way guys, if you enjoy the long malicious compliance stories, please don't forget to like the video, because that would help me tremendously. So some years ago, I worked at a bank office, not in the US, and I was mediocre at sales but good at service and processes, conditions, pricings, etc. So I was put at administrator position, not a manager one. My job was to meet incoming clients and help them solve their problem by helping them with the ATM or mobile app, or by navigating them to the right specialist via electronic queue, etc. So there was this woman, let's call her customer. She came to the office and asked for a money withdrawal. I recommended her to use ATM, and she told me she already used it but can withdraw more due to daily limit. I asked how much she wants to withdraw. It was 600,000 of our local currency, and replied that due to bank policy to withdraw that amount of money via the cashier, she needs to order it in 5 days for safety reasons, and only amount we can give her today is 150k without fees and 300,000 more with 2.5% fee, but she can use ATM tomorrow and withdraw all needed amount with no fees because the daily limit will refresh. She was not happy, and I can understand this, but then she started being rude and unreasonable. "Customer, I need to talk with more experienced employees. What do you mean I cannot withdraw my money? It's a bank." Me, they will tell you the same. It's a bank policy. Fastest and cheapest way for you to withdraw needed amount is to use ATM next day, technically after midnight if it's somehow urgent. Customer, "No, I don't want to talk with you. You're some newbie. Just give me a queue number and I will talk with a proper bank worker." Now, worth noting that I was the most experienced employee in the office in terms of operational work, including manager, so I giggled inside, but that was her clear will, so I gave her the number and moved on. 20 minutes later, yeah, it was busy evening, her number was called to the desk and she started asking same questions from a new girl, worked around 1 month at this point. Let's name this girl Eve. She was not familiar enough with everything, so she started casual identification procedure by checking client ID in the UV, searching for client profile in database, and sending her SMS code to approve entering profile, etc. So around 5 minutes more were gone. Then Eve asked what operation lady wants to do, and lady repeated her question. Eve tried to start withdrawal and noticed she cannot make more than 450k and there's a fee. What do you think? She called me to help. I walked around the desk and asked Eve what happened. Eve said, "Look, customer wants to withdraw 600k and I cannot type more than 450 and there's a fee." Me, "I'm sorry, I cannot help here." Client insisted to have more experienced employee to answer his questions, and left back to my workplace. After that, there was some banter between customer and poor Eve trying to explain the same stuff while I typed everything to her in work chat. Then she gave up and offered customer to talk with the manager if she's unhappy. She waited 20 more minutes for the manager and heard the same info I told her 50 minutes ago, and Eve repeated 20 minutes ago. Today she can have 150k for free and 300k more with fees. After midnight she can have 600k with no fees via ATM, and in case of big withdrawals in the future, she needs to order cash in advance. The customer left furiously, not looking at me. And yeah guys, if you enjoy these stories, please post some star emojis in the comments. Now we got an interesting comment from Reddit in the same thread, and it goes like this. So I work in the medical field, specifically scheduling radiology exams. So when a PT calls to schedule, I have to confirm first and last name, DOB and phone number, both company policy and for HIPAA. A patient, let's call him Peter, called in very angry, demanding to talk to a supervisor, tried to de-escalate and see if I can help. He explained that the previous person he talked to said she had to confirm the above information, and that having his phone number is a privilege, and that he has a burner phone that he changes every week, and he doesn't have to confirm anything, he just wants to schedule his appointment. I explained that the previous person he spoke with was correct, and that we do need to confirm above info for above reasons. Well, he didn't like this response and started yelling, wouldn't let me talk, and just kept on going and going about how he doesn't have to do this. I said, "Sir, you're right, you don't have to confirm your info, no one can legally make you, but I cannot access your chart unless you do." And the cussing started. I hung up, sent a detailed message to my higher-ups, and flagged the call. All that fight and fuss, and all you have to do is confirm your info so that we know we are speaking to the right person. And the next one is gonna be another story from r/MaliciousCompliance, and it's titled, "While getting ready for my engagement party, father-in-law handed me his shirt and told me to iron it for him because I'm a woman, so I ruined it." So my father-in-law had traveled down to attend mine and my fiance's engagement party. He was getting ready and staying at my house. I had my hair half curled and my makeup half done, with not much time left. I was visibly rushing. He handed me his shirt and said, "Iron this for me." Apparently, because I'm a female, it gave me the necessary qualifications for being the chief ironer. Well, I took it off him with a smile and ironed the vinyl, I think print on the highest setting, and ruined his shirt, melted the logo, and got scorch marks on the shirt. Oops, sorry father-in-law, I don't know why you thought I'd be good at ironing, but I'm terrible at it. I tried my best though. He had to wear an ill-fitting replacement from my fiancé, he ironed that one himself. Added to explain, my father-in-law is a terrible sexist man that abused my mother-in-law until she fled with her then young children to a women's refugee center. There's absolutely no question he was demanding I iron his shirt because I'm a woman, and that is apparently what women do, according to him. And no, I didn't feel like politely declining. No, it's not my responsibility to teach him how to be less sexist. And yeah guys, thank you for watching, I will see you again tomorrow.